Joining us this hour is Dr. Gilad Isaacs. He's a director at the Institute of Economic Justice. Doctor, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, you had expressed strong opposition to any intervention that involved a VAT increase. It's become apparent that it was among the proposed interventions. Your take on the postponement first.
I think that the VAT increase is problematic, but not only for the reasons which the DA has advanced. You know, they are and have advanced a position which is fundamentally opposed to any tax increase. That is a untenable position, because what it essentially asks National Treasury to do is make massive and radical budget cuts, which would severely impact on service delivery. So what we should be asking for is to say, are there ways in which tax and revenue can be generated, but through means that will have a less detrimental impact on the poorest in South Africa? And our view is that there are those alternative avenues available.
Then talk us through those alternative avenues, because it remains the elephant in the room, because today what we keep hearing is that 2% would have not been sustainable. It would just push citizens against the wall even further. So what are the interventions that are at the disposal of government?
Yeah, so we're busy updating all of our assessments, but I can walk you through some of them. So the first would have been a revision of the corporate income tax from 27 back to 28%. It was reduced a few years ago, and that unfortunately has had no a positive impact on investment. That would have raised only about 15 billion rand per year. Then there's various tax breaks which the highest income earners receive. There is a tax breaks on medical aids and on pensions, which if you just look at those earnings, say above a million rand, those tax breaks could bring in over 100 billion rand. There is the need to explore a net wealth tax that could bring in somewhere between 70 and 180 billion rand, and other means, for instance, of taxing wealth or financial transactions. So, there's a basket of options. Of course, not all of them could be implemented simultaneously, but what we really need to look at is how do we ensure that those most able to pay is where the tax burden is falling. And unfortunately, the VAT increase isn't the means of achieving that.
So you're of the view that the rich must fund the poor. But when we talk about that wealth tax, it's not something that is fairly new. It's not a novel idea. It's been bandied about for the longest time. But for some reason, it seems as though politics have also come at play, and it was something that government had no appetite to pursue. So meaning it's probably still out of the question. You will not be further funding the wealthy, or at least further taxing the wealthy to fund the poor.
So there's been a slight thawing from National Treasury over the last 6 months on the question of a wealth tax. But yes, it remains a proposal to which the National Treasury is irrationally and ideologically opposed. Some of the other measures which I've mentioned, including the partial elimination of various tax breaks, which the highest earning in society receive are policies which could be immediately and easily implemented, and which would not have the kind of impact on the lowest earning 80% in our society in the way that the proposed VAT increase would.
Mm-hmm. But, Doctor, the Democratic Alliance comes from the school of thought, at least by assessing or going through their proposals of what should happen in that budget speech or what should be included. Their school of thought is one that says do not alienate the private sector by consistently taxing them. What you need to do is get greater participation. If we're talking concessions when it comes to ports, allow them access to the grid. These are some of the things that they're suggesting should form a significant part of the budget in most instances, that here the posture should be not to alienate the business sector.
Right, and I don't think we should alienate the business sector either. What we have to understand, though, is that the factors which determine where businesses invest are multiple and complex, and the best available evidence indicates that in countries where the government is able to provide appropriate services, whether that is education for the workforce, health for the workforce, whether that's adequate roads, whether that's internet infrastructure, all of the things which a government has a hand in. Those myriad of institutional factors is what creates a productive and successful operating environment for both small businesses and large businesses, and actually that businesses are prepared to pay a fairly wide range of tax rates, so long as what is being received in exchange for that is creating an economic environment where that business is able to prosper. Mm-hmm. What we would see, so the flip side of the DA argument, okay, is sure, right, let's not increase any taxes. Okay, fine. Well, what's that going to mean for our education system? What's that going to mean for our roads? You can't have it both ways, right? We are not able to invest in our society and our economy if we don't raise revenue. Mm-hmm. And so what we need to do is have a package of revenue and expenditure which is both able to fulfill the kinds of needs that exist in a society like ours, but is obviously that is sustainable for the individuals and businesses being taxed. And that includes, looking creatively at other sources of finances. So remember last year, the government dipped into the what's known as GFECTRA, the gold and foreign exchange reserve account, where we sitting with about 500 billion in unused and unallocated gains there, and they've only made use of less than a third of that. So there are also other creative means of ensuring we can finance the types of needs that we have both in our society and in our economy.
Doctor, well, it will be interesting to see what becomes the final product of the budget speech come the 12th of March. But thank you very much for your insights this evening. That's Dr. Gilad Isaacs. He is IEJ Director there speaking to